Hi, I'm Bill Houghton, the founder of the Sensible Surrogacy Agency. And today we're talking about the cost of surrogacy. Both what are the costs at different destinations worldwide, as well as what are the components of your surrogacy budget, and how much do they cost, and what you can do to bring your costs down. So surrogacy costs vary widely around the world. And the United States, which has become sort of an international hub, is also the most expensive spot in the world. A typical surrogacy agency in the US is going to charge about $150,000 or more for the entirety of your program. Now, there are some cheaper programs in the US, slightly cheaper, but you should expect a surrogacy program with a reputable agency to be at least $140,000 or maybe $120,000 if you already have your embryos. Agency programs along the US coast, the US West Coast, including California, Washington, Oregon, as well as New England, will be the most expensive. This is largely because there's an enormous amount of competition. A lot of people worldwide have seen the Kardashians on TV and they decide to start their journey in California, right? And this has pushed the compensation for your surrogate up in that region, as well as the clinic's costs. Now, the same thing is true in New York and in New England generally. If you go to a surrogacy program, however, in the middle of the country, well, you're going to save a little bit of money, right? So around $140,000 for a surrogacy program in the middle of the country, maybe $160,000 for the same program on either coast. Now, that's assuming that you're doing a basic agency program in the US, where you're hiring an agent. The purpose of an agent is to manage the whole process for you. Right? He's going to find your surrogate. He's going to make sure she's medically, psychologically, and legally cleared. He's going to manage all of the finances. He's going to oversee the pregnancy and the clinic appointments, etc. An agent does a lot of work and has a lot of specialized expertise, probably more than you might realize, which is why they get paid an exorbitant fee. Agency fees range anywhere from $25,000 to $45,000 of that $150,000 budget. The other option is to do what we call an independent program, or an indie surrogacy journey. Indie surrogacy saves money because there's no agent, right? If you are brave and exceptionally detail-oriented, you may decide to take on the agent's obligations yourself. That means managing your surrogate directly and saving the agency fee. And that seems like a good deal, but honestly, it is not as easy as it sounds. At some point we'll do another video basically on indie surrogacy programs and how they work. But indie or agency program, the budget is still high. $150,000 or $120,000 in the case of an indie program. In addition, you should also include the cost of medications, which are going to be probably $5,000 to $10,000. Medical insurance, which can range from $9,000 all the way up to $35,000, depending on the time of year that you hire your surrogate. And there's a host of possible, what we call situational costs, including lost wages, housekeeping, and daycare expenses. You may also need the cost of an egg donor, right? And in the US, an egg donor is an expensive proposition. Donors in the US are going to cost you anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 for a good egg donor from an independent agency. So, all in all, the US, very expensive. And what I'd like to say to all of my clients is sort of the old adage: if you have to ask whether or not you can afford a surrogacy program in the US, well, chances are you probably can't really afford it. Not just because it's very expensive, but there's also really no guarantee that the final price won't grow throughout the journey. The American medical system is really convoluted. And it happens all the time that there are unexpected medical costs. Because US medical insurance is all private and not very well regulated, I might add, additional medical complications during a pregnancy can really impact how much your final surrogacy budget is going to be. You can buy private medical insurance for your surrogate, and that'll add about $750 a month for an Obamacare plan. Or you could buy outside of Obamacare and expect $2,000 a month for a plan purchased on the open market. Now, by the way, I should say that Sensible has a great program in the US, and I love to bring clients there because the US has a lot of outstanding and unique advantages. But if you're concerned about the surrogacy costs, right, then the US is going to be a risky place to be playing because the costs are high and often unpredictable. Now you compare the US to other international destinations, and there are quite a few. Mexico is a new and popular destination given changes in the legal framework in that country in 2021. A standard program in Mexico will be about $60,000 US. Mexico is easy to reach so that there are lower travel expenses than, say, if you were going to a program in Eastern Europe. But like the US, Mexico has no national health service, so you still need to consider the cost of medical insurance for your baby or for your surrogate. Now that could add as much as $8,000 to the budget. Now, here's a fun fact. Mexico is already among the top destinations for medical tourism for Americans, and it's the third most popular spot for medical tourism worldwide. So millions of people are already traveling to Mexico for medical procedures. And the 2021 Supreme Court decision that legalized surrogacy, that just adds one more treatment option to Mexico. Colombia is a destination, it's a relatively recent destination, and it's very popular with same-sex couples. The price in Colombia is about the same as in Mexico, $50,000 for a standard surrogacy program, or $70,000 for what we would call a guarantee program. Now, a guarantee program offers unlimited clinical procedures, IVF cycles, embryo transfers, until your baby is born. And one of the benefits of Colombia is its comprehensive national health service, which covers the cost of any complications during the pregnancy or the delivery. You don't need to buy insurance for your surrogate or the baby in Colombia. The government will cover most unanticipated medical expenses. Now, there are specific articles and videos in the Surrogacy Guide about surrogacy in Colombia and in Mexico and in the United States, and you should check those out on the website, sensiblesurrogacy.com. Canada was a popular surrogacy destination for a long time. A typical program in Canada is still about $95,000 US, considerably less than in the US, but Canada has strict regulations regarding surrogate compensation, which has made it really, really tough to find surrogates there. Those regulations came into effect around 2016, so they're relatively new. Before then, Canada was an international hub and very popular. Greece is a good destination if you are a European citizen, because they have laws that allow for European citizenship for babies that are born in that country. A surrogacy journey in Greece is about $85,000 US. And if you're considering a program in Ukraine, well, you can expect about $55,000 for a surrogacy program, including your donor, and a lot of sort of concierge type services. Obviously it's spring in 2023, which is when I'm recording this, and Ukraine is in the middle of a military conflict. So it's not the destination that I would most likely consider or recommend, but the clinics and agencies are still continuing to offer services for couples who want to take advantage of the very supportive legal framework, while supporting the local Ukrainian people. If you're looking for a very low-cost program, then there are places like Kenya or Guatemala, or Albania, and several sort of developing countries where the cost of living is very low and the local economy makes US dollars very valuable. But these destinations offer no legislation, no oversight, and substantial legal risks. For example, Kenya right now is probably about $45,000 for a basic surrogacy program, but you get what you pay for. And you may wonder, well, why do these cost so much, right? Why do these costs vary so much? And the answer is twofold. First is the basic cost of living in the United States, which is high. The US generally is an expensive place to live. You compare Los Angeles to Bogota, which are two popular surrogacy hubs worldwide. The cost of living in Los Angeles is 300% higher than in Bogota. And that means that your surrogate who's earning $15,000 in Colombia is actually making a similar amount in terms of value as a surrogate earning $50,000 in Los Angeles. So for the same service, the same woman who's providing the same benefit, you're basically paying 1/3 if you go to a program overseas in Colombia. The second reason why surrogacy costs are lower overseas is just the cost of medical care. Americans love to think that their medical care system is the best in the world. And in general, the best clinics in the US are probably going to be the best clinics worldwide. But a typical clinic in the US is really not that much better than a reputable clinic overseas, especially one that has been created to serve foreign travelers, right? Commercial medical tourism. Colombia medical facilities are actually ranked higher than the US or Canada by the World Health Organization. Plus most medical expenses in Colombia can be covered under their national medical service. Now, the US has a privatized medical care system, and so you have to buy insurance through a provider and pay out of pocket to your hospital or to your clinic, and that pushes the cost of your surrogacy journey way up. If you were to have a baby in Bogota, Colombia, if you were just to get pregnant and go to a maternity hospital and deliver your baby, you could probably walk out 3 days later with a healthy baby and pay basically nothing. If you do the same thing in California, you're likely to have to pay $5,000 to $10,000 out of pocket if you have insurance, right? If you don't have insurance, you can expect to pay far more than that for, or either going on some sort of type of government assistance and having the government pay for that. So the combination of the lower cost of living overseas and the comprehensive national health care is a big reason why going overseas for surrogacy is a lot less expensive than in the US. So what goes into your $150,000 surrogacy budget in the US? Well, let's assume for a moment in the US, and the biggest cost is going to be your surrogate herself. And this is actually true worldwide, but in the US, a typical surrogate is going to cost from $65,000 to $75,000 right now. At least $50,000 of that is what we would call her base pay. And that's how much she gets just for signing the contracts, for getting pregnant, and for delivering the baby. But that is not the total of her compensation package. The total compensation includes a lot of benefits that you should always take into consideration. And by the way, if you're thinking about finding your own surrogate and doing an independent surrogacy journey, and you have someone who's interested in becoming your surrogate, well, you're still going to have to provide all of these benefits to her. So keep this in mind when you're planning your indie budget. In addition to your surrogate's base pay, your surrogate's going to be getting a monthly allowance, and this could be anywhere from $200 to $300 a month throughout the pregnancy. Right? This allowance covers the costs of her being pregnant. Every time your surrogate starts a cycle, or whenever she starts taking medications, she's going to receive about $1,000 for what we call a start meds fee. Now remember, before your surrogate becomes pregnant, she's going to go through a lot of fertility treatments. So that means that she's going to start protocols with daily hormone injections, and then she's going to go through an embryo transfer, which is in itself a pretty invasive procedure. And so anytime she goes through one of those procedures, she's expected to get some small compensation, maybe $1,000, maybe $1,500. So that's what you can expect from a start meds fee or an embryo transfer fee. And while she's pregnant, she's also going to ask for maternity clothes, right? It's totally reasonable since she's going to need a whole new outfit. And you're going to spend probably $750 or more for a new set of maternity clothes. And if she's expecting twins, it'll probably be even higher than that. Now, those are what we would call sort of the standard benefits. But there's also what I like to refer to as what-if benefits. What if my surrogate becomes pregnant with twins? Well, in that case, your surrogacy contract is probably going to award her an additional $10,000 worth of pay and benefits just for the difficulty of carrying a twins pregnancy. What if there are medical complications, right? Various medical complications like an ectopic pregnancy or something that results in a full or a partial hysterectomy. Under her contract, likely your surrogate's entitled to anywhere from $9,000 to $15,000 in case of some sort of complication that involves a surgical procedure. Those are not medical fees, right, that would be paid by the insurance, right? These are extra compensation paid directly to your surrogate. But, the most dramatic benefit that could be added to your budget would be if there's a complication during the pregnancy and your surrogate is prescribed bed rest. Now, if your surrogate has a job, bed rest means that she's not going to work. And so you will be obliged to pay for her lost wages. If she has children, and all surrogates do, you should be paying for childcare, right, to take care of her children while she is on bed rest. You almost certainly are going to have to provide some support for housekeeping because she's going to need someone to come in and clean her home and arrange things. And all of those are reasonable benefits to expect with your surrogate. And all of those are going to push that base pay level from $50,000 up to a total package of $65,000 or $75,000 or more. And in addition to those costs, what other costs go into your surrogacy budget? Well, the clinical fees themselves are going to be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 depending on the clinic that you use. That includes these clinic procedures, right? There's the IVF cycle that includes the egg and sperm donations, the medical evaluation of the surrogate, and the embryo transfer. Now, like I said, clinics are going to be more expensive in the Northeast or on the West Coast. And I've seen some clinics that are charging upwards of $30,000 for an IVF cycle and an embryo transfer, which is definitely on the high end. On the low end, there are probably around $17,000 or $20,000 programs if you find a good clinic somewhere in the American Midwest. In addition to your clinic fees, there are lawyers' fees, and you should expect about $10,000 in legal fees. Legal services include two things. There's the surrogate's contract, and then there's the pre-birth or post-birth parentage order. Now, there may be some unexpected minor legal tasks that can add to your budget, so you should plan on hiring your lawyer on a retainer basis. And again, if you're planning an independent surrogacy journey, you still need to pay the legal fees, right? No U.S. state will name you as a legal parent of a surrogacy baby unless you have both a properly executed surrogacy contract and a pre- or post-birth parentage order. Then, like I said, there are agency fees that can range anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000. And when you sign the contract with your surrogate, you're going to have to take over her medical insurance premiums. Now, some surrogates may have insurance, and some may even have insurance that will cover a surrogacy pregnancy, but I wouldn't count on it. Only about 10% of surrogates will have some sort of medical insurance that will cover the pregnancy. So you should expect that you're going to have to pay for medical care or medical insurance, and that's going to cost you around $750 a month for the entire 12-month journey. And depending on the time of year when you buy your insurance or where your surrogate lives, that $750 could easily double every month. So, Where is the best place worldwide to have your surrogacy journey? Well, you may think that the best opportunity is just to go to some developing country where the cost of living is low and the price of your surrogacy program is going to be very low, like Kenya. Kenya is $45,000 for a program, and you may think, well, let's just go to Kenya and save a lot of money. Well, not so fast. There are a lot of costs associated with quality. And remember that every time you do an embryo transfer, or anytime you do a clinical procedure or have to repeat a clinical procedure, you have to pay additional money. So in the US or Mexico, where the costs are going to be higher, but you only need to do one set of clinical procedures, right? You only have to do one IVF cycle and only one embryo transfer. But in Kenya, where the clinics may not be as successful, well, you might have to do multiple embryo transfers. You may have to do multiple IVF cycles and pay for multiple egg donors. And so the same procedure in different countries could actually begin to raise your ultimate price depending on the quality of the clinic and how much difficulty you're going to have getting pregnant there. In addition to that, you should also consider the possible costs of any complications and legal issues. Now remember, in a country like Kenya or Guatemala or Cyprus, these are countries where there is no legal framework, and so the possibility of there being some sort of legal complication, right, some sort of legal snafu in your exit with the baby, that's pretty high. And if that happens, you could end up spending tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. You could end up spending weeks, if not months, overseas trying to bring your baby home. Now, those are all the costs that you should consider as possible contingencies to your surrogacy budget. And what I always advise people is the best place to do a surrogacy program and the most affordable place to do a surrogacy program is in a country where there is a strong legal framework in place and that provides protections for you both from a medical and legal and financial perspective. And so that's a quick summary of surrogacy costs worldwide, and I hope it was helpful. As always, if you have more questions or you want more details on this or any other topic, you can come to the website at sensiblesurrogacy.com and look through the surrogacy guide. Right? We have a searchable database of information about all aspects of your surrogacy journey, including a lot about costs and affordability. Or you can always contact us through info@sensibleservices.com. Send us an email and talk to one of our consultants. We're going to be having more videos like this one coming up on a variety of topics, including some webinars that will address financing issues altogether. So look for those, and I hope to see you there.